What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and things are getting pretty spicy. Trump has clearly not, Trump has clearly done fooling around. JD Vance did an interview last night that was pretty revealing about exactly what happened in the meeting during when things broke down with Zelensky. Apparently, the minerals deal was basically already done, and somebody must have got in Zelensky's ear, talked him into, trying to position or jockey position or what's going on or whatever's going on. Somebody advised him to do this. There was also supposedly some sort of clandestine meeting with the Democrats that happened before this that many people are calling for to be investigated. Last night, Trump had just said, yo, I've had enough. I've had enough. Aid is cut off until you're ready to talk about peace. And I 110% support this. Let's start with a little clip from JD Vance saying, this is obviously a pretty big deal. The minerals deal with Ukraine was done before Zelensky came to the White House. Then he acted like an ungrateful toddler and the whole thing blew up. Who advised him to push back against Trump and Vance at the last minute? Now, we're going to talk about that in a second.
You're exactly right, Sean. When the Ukrainians came to Washington on Friday, it was supposed to be ceremonial. There had been some public back and forth, some disagreements, some words spoken in public. And the president was like, let's have this moment. We give some credit to the brave Ukrainian fighters. And of course, it's a very brave army that they have there in Ukraine. Let's sign this minerals deal, which importantly does two things. It allows the American people to get some of their money back, but it also shows the Ukrainian people that America has a long-term investment in their sovereignty. You do those things, we'll sign this thing, we'll have a rah-rah moment, and then we'll get to the tough talk of negotiating peace. We couldn't even get the Ukrainians to a point where they could talk about the peaceful settlement. And look, in some ways, Sean, I get it. I get the frustration. I get the rage. It's their country. Of course, it's not our country. But you've got to accept, cooler heads have got to prevail. This thing cannot go on forever. This is the important point. I'd say this too, of course.
See, they want it to go on forever because a lot of people are getting very rich, by the way, including defense contractors, and I'm sure some people in America too, in particular some of these Democrats, is exactly what I'm going to talk about that in a second.
Most importantly, the Americans who are watching, but people all over the world. When you talk to leaders in private, whether they're Ukrainian or European, when you talk to people in private, they will tell you this cannot go on forever. There aren't enough Ukrainian lives, there isn't enough American money, and there isn't enough ammunition to fund this thing indefinitely. The only realistic pathway to bringing this thing to a settlement is President Trump's pathway. We encourage both President Zelensky and President Putin to follow that path.
Now, why did the deal fall apart? Well, look at this. Roger Stone now calls for Attorney General Pam Bondi to launch a criminal investigation to Democrat leaders that illegally held a shadow diplomatic meeting with Zelensky just hours before the infamous White House confrontation in an attempt to derail Trump's peace initiative. Pretty interesting.
Anthony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, Susan Rice, Alexander Vindman, and Senator Murphy now admitting that they violated the...
Senator Chris Murphy, who met with Zelensky before White House visit, confirms the Ukrainian leader had already decided to torpedo Trump's mineral deal before meeting with him.
The Logan Act. Alex, you know that you cannot have your own personal or partisan foreign policy.
Roger, they had it across the street at the White House guest home right before it. It's crazy.
Here you have these former Obama-Biden conspirators trying to set Trump up. Zelensky, I've watched this video 4 times. He looks coked up to me. And Trump manhandles him correctly because Zelensky not only says, no, the money you gave us was a gift, was a grant. We're not paying any of it back. That angered the president, as it should have, and he's not prepared to do this deal. Now we learn that the whole thing is a setup because the British had already reached an agreement where, just to get this exactly right, they had already signed an agreement that provided Ukraine security guarantees in return for their right of access to Ukraine's gas, oil, and minerals, as well as oversight of their ports. So this was a
Interesting.
massive setup, and I think it has backfired badly, certainly with the American people. The real key thing here, Alex, is that Attorney General Pam Bondi should appoint a special counsel to investigate whether these Democrats have violated the Logan Act.
Right? I mean, yeah, good question. It seems awfully interesting to me that all of a sudden, it seems awfully interesting to me that all of a sudden this deal fell apart. Right? Like, I thought this deal was done. Then he met with Democrats. Then the deal wasn't done. I mean, make of that as what you will. But then you have, Ukrainian leadership. This guy is a top advisor to Zelensky's chief of staff. He reposted a cartoon framing Trump and J.D. Vance as Putin's henchmen and claims that the Oval Office situation was a planned ambush. These people are the ones demanding our money. So here's Sergei Leshchenko posting this, saying that Putin's holding Zelensky and Trump and J.D. Vance are beating him up. It was a plan. It was an ambush. Also tweeting that. Very, very interesting. These are the people that want our money. These are the people that want American sons and daughters to die defending them because they want to get into NATO. And it is ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous to me. And then CNN this morning CNN this morning had to admit that the media keeps saying, oh my God, nobody likes how Trump's handling it. Well, let's see how the media thinks. What even CNN admits is true about what the American people think about how Trump is handling the Ukraine war.
I think the easiest way we can kind of just ask this is, do Americans like the way that Trump's handling his job compared to how they felt about Joe Biden? So this is the net approval rating. You look at Joe Biden back in 2024, he was 22 points underwater. Holy cow. You look at Donald Trump,
holy cow.
It's just a different planet entirely. I mean, the gulf between these two is wider than the Gulf of America or Mexico, depending on which side of the aisle you stand on.
It's the Gulf of America, no matter what side of the aisle.
He's at +2. So look, at this particular point, Americans are giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. He's doing considerably better than Joe Biden was doing on the handling of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And so on this simple question, I think Americans are saying, okay, Donald Trump's doing all right on this.
What about specifically on how they feel about bringing the war to an end?
Yeah,
okay. Watch
So,
this.
look, questions on this can be quite complicated, but I think this kind of gets at sort of where the American trend line is. Americans on the Russia-Ukraine war want a quicker end of the war, but Russia keeps its captured land. Look at this, 50%. Bare majority coming in here. Support Ukraine's right to fight, even if it means a longer war. That's at 48. This is very, very close. But the trend line on this
Ukraine isn't fighting, though. We are, but I digress.
question is so important because that want a quick end of the war. Look at this. You go back to August of 2022, it was at 31%. Now we're at 50%. I mean, that is a rocket ship upwards in terms of the Americans who want a quick end to the war, even if
It's not that we want a quick end to it. We're done paying for it. Ukraine can fight all they want. Ukraine can fight as long as Europe wants to pay for it. But the American taxpayers have had enough of it. And now, you see, as Trump suspends military aid, what are the chokeholds on Ukraine? What do you mean, what are the chokeholds? They don't have any money. Trump condemns Zelensky remarks that the war's end is far away. A statement by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky saying that a deal to end the war with Russia was very far away has drawn a furious response from Donald Trump. America will not put up with this for much longer, the U.S. president said in a social media post before accusing Zelensky of not wanting peace. A summit of mostly European leaders in London on Sunday agreed a 4-point plan to guarantee Ukraine's defense in the event of a peace deal with Russia. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. What were they thinking? Trump said, apparently referring to the summit held 2 days after his fiery clash with Zelensky at the Oval Office. The summit, hosted by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, was intended as a show of support for Ukraine in an attempt to reduce differences between Western countries over Ukraine. Britain and France said they were working on European-led solution of the conflict. Cool. You should take over the bill for it too then. After the meeting, Zelensky said the deal to end the war between Ukraine was still very, very far away. He added that he expected the U.S. to continue backing Ukraine despite his own fraught relationship with Trump. I believe that Ukraine has a strong enough partnership with the United States of America, Zelensky said on Sunday. I assure you it does not. Monday, Trump responded by reiterating his view that Zelensky stood in the way of peace negotiations. This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with this for much longer. As I was saying, this guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing, he wrote on Truth Social. During a news briefing later Monday, Trump once again said that Zelensky should be more appreciative for the aid that he's received from the U.S. in the 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I don't know if it's been a full-scale invasion. During the confrontation in front of the cameras, we know everything that happened there. After the London summit, the UK and France suggested a European coalition of the willing to defend Ukraine. Do you know who the coalition of the willing was, by the way? That's the exact same language they used when justifying invading Iraq. Exact same. I mean, this is bonkers. So, of course, that led to last night, Trump pausing all military aid to Ukraine days after the blowup. Although President Biden suspended deliveries of 2,000-pound bombs to Israel amid humanitarian concerns in Gaza, Trump's move against Ukraine essentially acts as a final ultimatum to Zelensky. It's not a move against Ukraine. The American people have had enough. President Trump has had enough. And if we go down to these comments, right? Good. Hey, Mr. President, end him. Why can't people understand that Trump isn't a career politician who's been molded to fall in like the global agenda of a one world government? I mean, every comment in here is supporting Trump. Enough of this fake, fatigue-clad, arrogant idiot. Libs can keep Biden's stooge for themselves, and this is how you end the war. Right. Essentially, war has been all about profit from various sides, and now Donald Trump has had enough of it. You know, here's what J.D. Vance said, too.
The message to the Ukrainians, by the way, to President Zelensky is when you've lost Lindsey Graham, that means you need to come to the negotiating table and recognize Donald Trump is the only game in town. He's the only person who I think has a meaningful plan to save that country. But, Sean, here's the problem with the Europeans. And a lot of these guys are our friends. They're our allies. Yeah. We, of course, the president has a great relationship with a lot of European heads of state, and so do I. But they need to be realistic. Mm-hmm. And the craziest part about this, Sean, is that sometimes you'll have European heads of state who in public will puff up their chest and say, we're in it with President Zelensky for the next 10 years. And then in private, they'll pick up the phone and say, this can't go on forever. He has to come to the negotiating table. So I honestly don't care what the Europeans say in public. What I care is what they say in private. Right. And what they need to be saying to President Zelensky is this can't go on forever. The bloodshed, the killing, the economic devastation, it's making everyone worse off.
And absolutely. And that's what America's had enough of. Donald Trump has had enough of. Everybody supports this. I mean, it sucks. I don't want more soldiers to lose their lives. But at the end of the day, we're out of money. The purse is closed. Sorry, you had 4 years. I hope you were informed by this video. If you were, please do leave a like on it. If you haven't yet, subscribe or follow down below. We'll talk to you again real soon.